Good afternoon. Welcome to Chapter 22, Part 3. Sorry that I got cut off there. I was so excited about looking at all the different things that regulated urine that I lost track of time. So when I left you last, we were looking at the textbook. And in the textbook, there are these things that control renal function. We were in the middle of talking about antidiuretic hormone ADH. Notice it's capital A, capital D, and capital H. That's because the capitals are needed because it's an acronym. ADH will promote water absorption, and it promotes water absorption by acting on that distal convoluted tubule. So you've got your loop of Henle in here, and then you've got your distal convoluted tubule. What the ADH does is it increases the leakiness of the permeability of the tubule, and because you've increased the tubule release, because you've increased the permeability of the tubule, and because the concentration gradient was built up in the loop of Henle or the nephron loop, there is now an osmotic difference between the blood and the urine, and that will result in the water being drawn into the blood supply to reabsorb. Okay? So when you look at that, ADH will promote water reabsorption in the distal tubule and the collecting duct. That will concentrate urine and conserve water. Then you have renin. Renin is produced by the renal cells, and when pressure falls, that comes from the juxtaglomerular apparatus. It will increase angiotensin, which will increase an angiotensin becomes angiotensinogen is there, which will become angiotensin, and it will result in increasing blood volume. So increasing blood volume is aldosterone and ADH. Anytime you want blood volume to be built up, you will move more volume from the kidneys into the blood by increasing the permeability of the loop of Henle or the nephron loop. Good. When we look at next topic, the next topic we want to look at is the ureters. The ureters, if you remember, the ureters come from the kidney. They are the tubes that go through the tubes that go to the bladder. Can be a problem if you have kidney stones. Kidney stones can be quite painful because it happens because the urine will sit in the kidney and form in the kidney if it sits there too long. And as a result, you will get a stone produced there. Basically, it's just a precipitation of salt. Too much salt will form little salt crystals. Then the urine will go down to the ureters to the bladder. Okay. The ureters have involuntary muscle layer, extend from the kidneys, move by gravity, and peristalsis. If you remember, peristalsis is that muscular movement. Once it gets to the bladder is pretty much a reservoir. You don't need to know the details in this in here, other than it is a muscular sac. It has rugae similar to the stomach. Rugae are just folds. It allows your bladder to distend. They say after the bladder has about a cup to 250 milliliters, you will have the urge to pee. And then the urine will then go to the urethra, which is from the bladder to the outside. And I've already talked about the difference between boys and girls there. When it comes to urination, there is involuntary control and there is voluntary control. There's two sphincters, the internal and the external. The internal sphincter is involuntary. The external is voluntary. As children get older, they learn to control this voluntary sphincter. And as seniors get older, they lose control of this voluntary sphincter. Good. There's a bunch of disorders, just to quickly look at them. Basically, disorders can interfere with the nephron. They can be tubules, renal failure. Anything that interferes with the surface area of the glomerulus will interfere with problems. Anything that interferes with the passage of blood into the kidney will cause a problem. Anything that causes tumors, kidney stones, and movement of urine outside is a problem. When we look at shock therapy to break down kidney stones, quite often you just pass them. Okay. One concern is if the kidney function gets too bad, you need to be put on dialysis. And dialysis is a machine which basically filters your blood. In terms of osmosis and diffusion, you need to think of the fact that things move when there's a concentration gradient from high to low. So you have the blood and you have the dialysis fluid, sometimes called the dialysate or diastolate. What happens is anything you want to move, you want to have a concentration gradient. Anything you want to move back, you have an opposite concentration gradient. And things will move until the concentration gradient is equal. Okay? This is why it's very important that you're putting the right fluid in the dialyzing machine. If you remember back, there's a situation where they changed the concentration of potassium chloride. That ended up with too much potassium being drawn out, and unfortunately, the person died from it. Any other disorders, I'm not really going to look at in too much detail. We're not going to look at conduits. When it comes to looking at word anatomy, you have retro, which means behind, like retro dressing. You look like the 80s. Nephro has to do with the nephron, that small functional unit. Pylo has to do with the pelvis. Dia means through. And noct means night. And that's the brief summary. Please pay attention to all of the videos on here, because this will give you more detail, because you need to know more detail than I've given you, even though I've given you a whole whack of detail. There's a lot that needs to be done in this unit, so please pay attention to this. And that's it for